pirataria ou contrafação sempre foi uma
Piracy or counterfeiting has always been a threat to organized markets. Without a commitment of developing new products and services, nor of safeguarding the reputation or value of trademarks, manufacturers of counterfeited products are simply free riders taking advantage from the notoriety built with hard work and investments of other people, institutions, and companies. Usually, the outflow for such products is the illegal commerce, where they offer and reduce the prices together with legal products unlawfully obtained, therefore hurting commerce in different areas. When counterfeited products manage to infiltrate formal commercial systems, negative impact is just as harmful. Consumers and producers are affected, and it always comes to a point when the cost is shared by all those acting lawfully. With modest electronic commerce, the scenario became even more complicated to the extent that, to consumers, it became harder to know the origin and whether information provided by sales portals that constantly contact them on social media is true or false. For producers, the risk of having counterfeited products that undermine their sales, even before they become aware of it, is also greater. When fighting piracy, unlawful trade, and cargo theft is not effective, there's no question that there will to invest in illegal production and illegal commerce. The next panel will discuss these issues as well as updated ways of facing it. We brought to this panel leaders and specialists in fighting illegal commerce, and as our moderator, we are honored to have Mr. Rodrigo Ouro Preto. Mr. Rodrigo, you have the floor. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the first panel of the 40th International Congress on Intellectual Property. This panel will deal with a very important topic, the legal market and the risk of local divestment. We need intellectual property to encourage innovation and development of new technologies and products. The legal market, both in terms of piracy and the illegal of goods, brings difficulties, and the governments have to act so as to prevent such acts to undermine the economy, preventing investments in Brazil. So we have here a very interesting panel bringing together specialists who will tell you about their experience vis-a-vis the situation that we are facing daily. We are going to hear Mr. Edson Vismona, Mr. Paulo Campana, and Mr. Leandro Madru. Dr. Vismona is a lawyer, has a degree from the University of São Paulo. He was the Secretary of Justice and Defense in São Paulo from 2000 to 2002. He is the executive member of the Forum on Fighting Piracy. He is also a member of the Institute of Ethical Competition, and he is the executive president of the Brazilian Institute called Brazil Legal. So you have the floor, Edson. Thank you. First of all, let me thank the president of the Brazilian PTO, the ABPI. It's a great pleasure to participate in this event now in the virtual format. We were forced to get used to this reality, but what matters is that we are adjusting, we are getting ready and being better to face such challenges of what we call the new normal. My presentation will go from the general to the particular. I will start with an overall view of the market, the legal market, how hurtful it is to the development of our country, and then I will focus more specifically on the anguish that such sectors have to go through. Let me show you my first slide. Sorry, I can't move forward my slides. I'm sorry, I'm unable to operate the slides. We will get support from the technical. We also are having problems with the sound. I see that we are having problems with the sound system, so let's just wait a few minutes and we should be back shortly. Go back to the first slide. I think the sound is working properly now. Can we start? We'll start in 30 seconds. As I was saying, I will go from the general, an overview, and then focus specifically on the anguish that this sector is going through and highlighting some of our difficulties. In this sense, it's important to mention legal security. That's what attracts investments, generates jobs and innovation. When a company carries out a due diligence in Brazil, they want to know if their trademarks and patents will be protected, will be filed and duly recognized, whether there are threats of the illegal market. And unfortunately, in addition to companies, in addition to having taken care of their market, fair competition, they also have to consider the dimension of counterfeiting, piracy, smuggling, illegal issues. So this is part of our world, and companies need to know whether the law is being complied with. What happens if the law is not complied with? What happens when infringements occurs? So these are questions that companies ask more and more when deciding to invest in a certain country, and that's why this topic is extremely relevant. The divestment fear. We do not have the necessary investments due to very basic questions that we haven't been able to provide and to guarantee legal security. And this is all related to investment. We need investments, we need companies, strong companies paying taxes. This is another dimension that we have to face. There are many companies that fail to pay their taxes. They are always in debt. So all these elements are ready to be analyzed by whoever is deciding on whether or not to invest in Brazil. So this is important because we are talking about legal security. Here I present some questions based precisely on this first assumption that I mentioned in terms of legal security. So in Brazil, are rules widely respected? If they are not, what happens? Are is our legislation effective in fighting impunity? Is there a factor that attracts illegal activities? If there is no law enforcement or if the profits are very high, crimes becomes more attractive, and we have to consider that the impunity encourages criminals to act because they are not going to pay taxes. They are not worried about trademarks, work development. They ignore any technical rule that comes from our regulatory agencies. They are totally free from rules and laws. And all the formal companies have to comply with the proper law and rules. So the next question is, are our courts upholding and making sure that law enforcement is effective? Sometimes illegality and the illegal acts are accepted by society. We have to face it. This is a reality in our country, and I'm going to show you in the next slide. Certain studies were carried out, and we've seen that the people ask, I mean, what is the problem in terms of illegal products? What is so bad about it? They don't see how hurtful illegal commerce is. So we have tax evasion, we have illegal products, and consumers are affected in terms of their security, safety, health, because there are products that simply override any regulations or rules. Let's look at the next slide where we will see some findings. This is what we see in our daily activity. There are many news and information from the police saying that smugglers are arrested and they are released on the very same day. Sometimes they are released before the company goes to the police precinct to um, to file the necessary forms. So it's incredible. For example, in smuggling of cigarettes, the drivers that bring such merchandise, they are known to the police officers. They are often arrested and they pay a certain amount, which can go to what? 3,000 reais. Maybe it will be more than that if you are incurring a second crime, but they pay it, they are released, and everything goes on. Those who are incurring in debts constantly, especially in the area of alcohol and cigarettes. There are structures that allow them to delay their payment of taxes, and they take advantages of uh, loopholes in the legislation and in the structure to remain in that situation forever. More than 3.5 trillion reais are under judicial claims. The state needs to be able to collect this money, those who are taxpayers, lawful taxpayers, want to comply with the law, but all this amount is stuck in the courts. We have a project which is the 333/99. We have this project that cannot be approved. We've been fighting for its approval for many years. It's a project on infringement of copyrights. And there's also a request so that we can destroy more speedily false merchandise that is seized, because these merchandises are there in warehouses and stay there forever. But it's a very lengthy process, and this we have been able to sanction this law. We were pressuring the House of Representatives to vote it, but it did not progress any further. So after 20 years, we are still fighting to have the proper legislation sanctioned, and this certainly hurts those who are fighting counterfeiting. In terms of smuggling, the Supreme Court ruled that up to 20,000 reais, this crime is considered as of low potential. So the result is very clear. There are small trucks that devoted to the transportation of small volumes, and they feel that they are free. The truck drivers engaged in illegal activities, they carry a copy of the law in their hands to show the agents. So this all goes against the fight against this runs counter the fight against the criminality. And we also have society that has to be taken into account. There, a survey was carried out to about a law that would criminalize illegal connections, internet illegal connections, and other illegal connections. And the survey was carried out to see what was the perception of society. 95% were against the law. They said, no, 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 we are not going to criminalize it. I want to be able to have illegal connections for the internet. I do not want to pay internet companies. This is absurd. And such findings really make us very worried. But at the same time, I become more enthusiastic because it shows the work we have to do, that we have to carry forward among the different agencies, the different law firms, and the effort that has to be made to overcome this reality. Let me show you now a picture. This is something that we do every year, and we try to assess the loss that occurs every year in terms of the losses incurred due to this illegal market. When you talk about losses in general, it usually is not well understood by most people. So we have each sector showing the losses incurred. And this is in the next slide. Can we see the next slide, please? And we will see the billions of reais that we lose. Our estimate is 46% in terms of non-collected taxes. Can we see the next slide, please? I can't do it from here. Could you please go ahead and show the next slide? Okay, great. So we can see here, these are results from 2019. Each one of these sectors estimated the losses incurred. And we can see here these very high amounts, 58 billion, 25 billion, 23, 17, and these the losses incurred by these 15 sectors to the conservative estimates that we have in tax evasion, we reach 291 billion 440 million. And this is an underestimate because we have not included uh, automobile parts, drugs, and tires, and other segments that have not been included and are just as important. This amount of losses means that some people are benefiting from it, and it acts in these areas that are presented here. This is not an isolated action. Those who bring through smuggling counterfeited products, whether cigarettes, glasses, whatever, the logistics is the same, the routes are the same, and this is further added when we have a truckborne truckborne freight which is stolen. So we are not talking about innocent activities. Society often says, well, these are poor people that are out there selling their merchandise in the streets. No, this is not the case. Behind them, there is a very sophisticated structure engaged in money laundering amounting to billions. We've done a work and we have the whole logistics of cigarette smuggling coming from the point of origin to the point of sales. And we've seen how this process works. And we know that this is very sophisticated. So there's no point in considering that the street vendor is just a poor guy who is trying to earn a living. It's not true. There's a very sophisticated structure underlying it. So let's look at other dimensions of crime. Is these criminal organizations are very sophisticated. They occupy spaces that have been neglected by the state. This is the case of militias in Rio de Janeiro. In certain areas of de Janeiro, these organized the groups, the militias, they don't allow cigarettes to be sold. Only they are capable and are in a position to sell cigarettes. They are a threat to the state. The action of such criminal organizations in our cities, in our roads, they pay no attention to the existence of law or borders or authorities. They are after profit. And there is impunity which encourages such criminal activities. And such acts, they always wanted to be as something minor as a misdemeanor. Is the poor guy selling something out in the streets to survive. And this criminal dimension happens in the physical world and more in the digital world. Certainly, we were able to identify the provision of illegal products sold through the internet. We are working hard on that. The physical world is the guy who is out there in the street selling merchandise, and society tends to look at him or her and say, oh, this is just a poor person earning a living. But there's nothing innocent about it. And the same thing occurs in the digital world. The dimension of such the dimension of the supply of illegal products, and we have to pay attention to the digital world as well. As we've said before, in terms of the internet, we are talking about a physical market, of course, and we are working on that because the internet cannot be a lawless space. Some marketplaces and e-commerce, often we hear that this is a matter of freedom of speech. It's not. It's the consumer defense. It's totally unrelated to freedom of speech. And I think we've been able to go forward in this sense, and I'm going to show you now.
The World Trade Organization, and recently the OECD, the United States, the European Union have established that internet is not a lawless place, and we need to fight against crimes on the internet. Also, in the World Economic Forum, and topic 9 is illegal commerce, piracy, counterfeiting is placed as one of the major global risks pointed out by the World Economic Forum. This is a global phenomenon, and we need to be quite careful with it. The production sectors, other than looking after their everyday business, they need to fight this type of crime. The other day, I read an article about a counterfeit washing machine powder. This was bluntly being advertised by a supermarket. And now the last slide. Not to close on a negative note, I need to point out to some positive progress points. Last year, we spoke with Justice Minister Morrow about integration of action. This is a mantra in public security. You cannot do any work without integration and coordination. So there should be an integrated cabinet at the border. So this was in January. In December, the first Center for Integrated Borders was inaugurated. At the same time, also the Special Department for Integrated Operations was also created. This was very interesting because this coordinates police forces with CIOF and CIOPI. We had Vigia Hours, the Scudo programs supporting federal police, road police, and state police during the pandemic. Was records and seizure of products. I have heard from some sectors that have increased their market share because of restriction imposed after the borders were closed. There was a reduction in the supply of illegal products. So this has to be a priority. There has to be investment to support these actions in human resources, as well as in providing equipment to police forces, also intelligence all the time. And then leaving the border and going to Sao Paulo, it's the second place for illegal products in Brazil. And from the beginning, we started a coordinated action with the local authorities, the federal police, and the civil police in Brazil to fight illegal products in illegal market in Sao Paulo. Every week, there are operations, police operations. We went from once every 3 months, large operations, to small but permanent operations, a system of operations from the borders, and has to be systematic. We need to insist on fighting this illegal market. And what we have in Sao Paulo is an example, a reference to the fight against illegal market. And then CNCP for e-commerce and payment means. A great debate with the active participation of all stakeholders in this area. And then we managed to get to the manual of good practices with great results, with the participation of the marketplace, doing what we always advocated. Marketplace has to be the main character. We can't be passive. the marketplace has the mechanisms to prevent the supply by algorithms. So nobody needs to work for them. The marketplace does have the capacity to take the initiative against in the fight against these illegal market. Another important piece of information is the use of technology of traceability. With smartphones and QR code, everybody knows. I mean, you go to a restaurant, there's a QR code, and then you don't even need a menu. So you have an access to a number of information with a lot of information. So you can check companies, and companies can say, well, I have been robbed. Well, there's an alert to security. Any consumer can have access. So the consumers will collect information with a smartphone. This is something that I really defend, which is the use of technology to fight illegal market. Consumers participate, the police participate to identify a stolen product. I used an example of a truck. A police officer opens a truck full of cargo, and then they look at it. What do they know? If they have a QR code on the product in a traceability, it is possible to identify if it's been stolen, if there is a tax receipt, legalizing the product, and so on. These are systems that work really well for identifying stolen products. But when the consumer and the government, the public agent, to identify stolen products, that is really going to facilitate the fight against the illegal market. I will close here before Rodrigo cuts my microphone. I thank you for your attention. I'm available to answer questions. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Vismona, for your presentation. It's incredible to see the size of the problem when you consider that all markets and products are affected by this. I'd like to invite Paulo Cantanti, our second speaker, who is going to show us the agricultural sector. Paulo Cantanti has a master's degree in phytotechnique and sustainable production from the University of Brasilia, has worked as a technician in the general at the Anvisa in Monsanto, as well as an executive as Abrasame. He is a director in Hemoplasma of Crop Life Brazil. Paulo, we have the floor. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. I'd like to thank the organization, to thank Rodrigo. Can you hear me? Paulo, we need you to unshare your screen. Otherwise, we won't be able to operate it from here. I'm not sharing it. Are we all set? Just a moment. May we start? Just 1 minute, bear with me. Can we get back to the beginning? Perfect. I think you can go ahead, Paulo. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me? Perfect. So anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank the organization, Rodrigo, Ms. Mona, Leandro, the opportunity of Crop Life participating in this meeting. I am going to talk about seeds, which is my area of work, but as Ms. Mona has said, within Crop Life, we cover 4 areas: seeds, fertilizers, biotechnology, and biology products. And all these areas, as you well mentioned, are under the attack of piracy and counterfeiting. So I am going to introduce seeds, but the pain is the same or even worse in the other 3 pillars of crop life. Here, what we're talking about, it's a little bit something to do with what you said, Vismona. For us, sometimes it's easy to understand for us what piracy of seeds is. When you look at the grain and the seed, and when it seems that things are so similar, when you the DVD, CD, counterfeit piece of clothing, it's very visual and obvious. But the seed and the grain, they look similar, but it's very different. So when we were talking about how difficult it is for other sectors to understand our pain, especially when it comes to seeds and other products that are similar to seeds. So piracy is very difficult to identify. If you look in your hand between a seed and a grain, you can't see. Seed is one of the driving forces in innovation. Companies invest years and millions in these seeds for traceability. And sometimes we joke around, our sector is highly regulated from the beginning of production. We inform the ministry of the processes. We have registration numbers. Crops are registered under the Ministry of Agriculture and controlled by the Ministry of Agriculture. Everything is regulated. Seeds, genetic purity, germination, there are standards established for production of seeds to go to the market. So we can't compare this to a grain. A grain may germinate. That's the only thing I can say about a grain. But there's no traceability. It doesn't pay taxes. It doesn't generate currency. it is a very unfair competition for companies working in this area. So, well, how do you make a seed? We talked about time. Here, I voluntarily put in a research in biotechnology with a transgenic, genetically modified seed. So about 15 years for this cultivar to get to the market. So it's long, expensive. When we deliver that to a farmer, it's so much more than you can see on the seed. There are a number of attributes to that seed that is going to increase the potential to farmers. So this is one of the fastest innovation vehicles in agriculture. I have there seed, high productivity, resistance to plagues. You may have biotechnology genes inserted into the seeds. When I talk about the cost of producing seeds in the last studies, this is not even a very new studies, it's $136 million from the discovery of a gene, identifying that gene, putting the gene into the seed, the regulation of the seed around the world, and then launching it in the market. So we're talking about a very long and expensive process on the part of the seed production companies to deliver this to agriculture. I know this is a lot of numbers, very busy slide, but last week I had a meeting, SESME, the Strategic Committee for Soybean in Brazil. So they have a challenge to farmers with smaller areas, trying to add productivity year by year. So when you look at the results, impressive. I wanted to move away from the conventional figures of productivity. This is a new way of looking at productivity gain, the genetic potential of a new seed, the amount of innovation. 2008, 2009, some of them have 80 harvests per hectare, which is doubled than others. So that shows the genetic potential of that material. So with time, you see how much gain in productivity by area. It's huge. When you go to 12, 13, 14, the first 10 positions, 100 bags per hectare, so double productivity compared to the others. So we have good practices, fertilizers, irrigation. Between 50 and 60% of increase gain in productivity is because of genetics in the seed. So this is a very interesting table. I asked them for permission to show this slide. So all these are points completely outside the curve. So it's quite impressive. So then we move on to the legal framework that we have in Brazil. As it was mentioned today, most sectors are under the umbrella of the triple agreement. As seeds, we're also under that umbrella. Circuits, patents, everyone is under the same umbrella. So for patents for seeds under the agreement of the TRIPS, Article 23 says the nations will protect either by patents or by a special system. When the agreement, the TRIPS agreement became effective, these were systems that were there, but they were not under an agreement. The US, Germany. So you can have a patent or another special system or a combination of both. United States, Korea, Japan, Australia, they have a hybrid system using both forms of intellectual property to protect the varieties of seeds. In Brazil, there's a caveat. Our Industrial Property Act, in Articles 10 and 18, it says that we can't have patents for seeds. Patents wouldn't have an effect on us. So Brazil is now a member of the there are UPOV. There are a number of directives under the UPOV for countries. So Brazil is a signatory of number 78 for the protection of cultivars. So this is under the law of a law from 1997. So all these are subject to patents. In Brazil, there are two different instruments for intellectual assets of goods and materials and seeds. One in terms of genetic construction, biotechnology, for example, and the other protecting germplasm genetics developed by companies. So under the same good, you have two intellectual assets. This, in fact, this is very interesting because this has been challenged by the farmer trade unions in various parts. And then we have had a judgment from the Superior Court of Justice confirming that these are two intellectual assets regulated by two different statutes. And that was a victory for this sector and is giving us a breath and creating a favorable environment of legal security so that companies continue to invest in research. If this decision had not been taken, we would be on a different path today. Here, I'm not going to dwell in details. I just put it in red. We are under the UPOV. So Act 78 of UPOV is an older one, and a number of the items are not perfect, especially when it comes to enforcement as penalties for those who are in the sector. The seed, a saved seed, because that's very easy for counterfeiting and piracy. Article 10 of our law, there are exceptions to intellectual property rights. So under the exceptions, you have the exception of improvement, all laws and acts of UPOV to continue improvements. Also, farmers that use it for subsistence. But unlike other countries, we have an exception that is quite open so that the farmers can save a seed and plant. That would be okay for the seed sector if the farmer would leave the seeds there in their own property. But what happens is that very often companies use this loop to the safeguard to produce the seeds and sell it in the black market, or either through piracy and not paying the royalties and the amounts for dermoplasma as well as research investments. So this is critical for sustainability in the sector. I like this graph. It's a very simple one, but it really shows the actors in the seed industry and how things are interconnected. Very often, those outside think that research companies and those that obtain the seeds are going to define what's going to get to the market. It's not the case. It's either a new agricultural frontier, society, a sweeter product, a smaller fruit for a smaller size family. So innovation is driven by the market, by society, and that is what's brought back to the research. And then it's going to produce the 12, 15 years later, that innovation. So the technology then goes back to the seed farmer, the seed producer, to multiply the technology, bring it to the field, to the actual farmer. And then a seed producer, when selling a seed to a farmer, it has to be paid for it. And once it has a license, is paying royalties to the research. It's a simple scheme here that you see, but it's very important. If you interrupt any of the arrows you see on the screen, this is going to lead to a major problem in the seed sector in Brazil. So it's very important to protect intellectual property, to have transparent legislation and an effort to fight piracy. This is a picture of Brazil today. We have in this blue graph the hybrid entities of the seed. You see soya, wheat, you see the seeds. You look at the numbers of royalty evasion, 337 million reais, a loss with these three crops, reaching 2.65 billion reais. This is a picture of Brazil. This is a different picture. It's a picture of Argentina, where we don't want to get to. Here we see certified seeds in our hybrids, sunflower. Because of the characteristics, when they have all those you see on the screen, very terrible levels on the use rate, 70% is saving or using a grain, not the seed. They're not using seeds, they're using grains. Same thing for soya, 80% of soya is not seed, it's grain. So I apologize. We were hoping to get more updated data from seed producers in Argentina, when in the past there were 18 companies obtaining seeds, less material being launched. It is complete downer for the agriculture in Argentina. So you see the indicators going down. And here are my final comments, and then I'll be available for answering questions. I'm sure I spoke very fast so that you might have questions. So just to say that seed is really critical. It is an agricultural vehicle of innovation and technology, reaching the farmer much faster. And very important to make sure there's food security. Brazil, as an agricultural country, can't afford to not to have certified seeds. This is the beginning of everything. This is a basic input in agriculture. It worries me, this low use of certified seeds. There's like a yellow light telling us, a warning light telling us that, situation may not be so good, and we may have a difficult trend in terms of investments, innovation, and research in new products. It's very important. We have with Brazil and Crop Life and other companies to have an update our legislation that protect companies, that protect the rights of farmers, but also intellectual property protection. And then at the end, we have to work together, the government, legislators, the private sector, to what Vismona say, to create a safe, stable, predictable environment so companies continue to invest, can stay here, other companies come to Brazil and make investments here. Only with this legal stability and security that we're going to keep the sector and not end up taking a path that we don't want. We always have the notion that we are too large and that companies are going to end up staying here whatever happens with or without intellectual property. That's not the case. If you don't have a safe legal framework and intellectual property protection, we're really going to move on towards a total divestment of in this industry. Thank you so much, Rodrigo, and everybody else in the organization for the invitation.
Thank you, Paulo, for your presentation. We were able to see how the agribusiness, which is so dear to Brazil in this competitive market, and how we need production so that we can have investment, and how all this is at risk with the illegal market that has to be fought against, and its importance has to be recognized. I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Leandro Mandu. He holds a degree in mechanical engineer from the São Francisco University, São Paulo, and has a graduate degree in intellectual property from Unicamp. He's been working in this area for 10 years, and he's currently the manager of intellectual property and innovation of Bosch Latin America. So, Mr. Leandro Mandu, you have the floor. Thank you, Rodrigo. Good afternoon to all of you. My greetings to my distinguished colleagues who are here in this panel with me, and to all those who are hearing us. If possible, I think we can start our presentation. I would like to thank ABPI for this invitation. It's a great honor to be able to share this material with you and share information with you. So to start with, let me give you some figures of our group. Bosch has more than 130 years. I think we are going to have our 134th anniversary. Intellectual property is part of our DNA. Our average filings is 5,000 per year. This is more than 2022 filings for patent in a day. In the past, we reached almost 80 billion euros, which came from the work of our staff all over the world. Out of these almost 400 employees, we have some that are exclusively working for research and development, about 60%. And we have 4 major lines of action. All of them are present in Brazil. We have these divisions in Brazil, and they are all suffering due to piracy. In my next slide, I will show you a video, very short video, I promise you, that shows something of which we are proud and which represents a challenge, which is the diversity of products that we have at Bosch. But on the other hand, we are all suffering. All these products suffer from the damage of piracy. Okay, so we are back. As you can see, all of these products that were shown there are technologically based, and this is innovation is a key driver for us. And we can see that also in the way our trademark is recognized, and there's a lot of work to reach this point. A survey last year showed that in auto parts, our trade is the world most admired. And also in the Fortune 2020, Bosch is also one of the most admired companies competing with different sectors. In fact, our trademark is a very valuable asset that we have in our group, and we work hard to keep it this way. And of course, this attracts the attention of illegal market. Talking about auto parts, in Brazil, the automotive parts market in Brazil last year, a little over 150 billion in sales and 14% amounting to 20, over 20 billion is just for replacement. We hire 200, more than 250,000 employees. These are direct jobs, and there is a whole network that also provides support to the company. So in Brazil, we have almost 46 vehicles. It is the sixth largest fleet in the world, the eighth vehicle production worldwide. So it's almost one per each four inhabitants, for people. So this is a very expressive volume. And of course, it attracts the attention of the illegal market. And that's what we'll be talking about. So you see in these pictures products such as this one. This is an original packaging of a part that was an original piece at one point, but it was taken out and replaced by a legal product. And this here is a bit, it's not very clear because I had some data here that I did not want to show. But there are other products such as this one here. This one I can hear, I can't even pronounce it. They miswrote completely. So they use that to copy our product. Now we see here some clippings, which shows again the growth that is experienced. The legal market due to the pandemic has grown, including for us. And we see that the legal market is also resorting to technology, but we've had some problems in our investigation. It was very difficult to obtain information of an infringement perpetrator, but now because of the digital world, this has been made easier. But there are some numbers here that bring a lot of concern, and some statistic data is very valuable and needs to be more currently analyzed, because maybe 30% of our market is undermined with illegal products. And I'm going to show here a slide showing our main concern. Piracy drains the legal market. It impacts directly the legal market. Comparing to other sectors such as apparel, many people are in a store. The store knows, the person going there knows that they sell illegal products. But for automotive parts, this is not true. Often, consumer does not want a counterfeited item in his or her car. They want the original part because they are fully aware of the fact that this represents a risk to him, to his family. So, in most cases, what we see is that the final consumer or the person who is acquiring and using does not know it's not legal. The market has a very wide impact, reaching all the players. Of course, the automotive parts manufacturer, which invests in research and development and production. So such parts, when legally done, they require 3-4 years of development and also a very high cost to test, to provide all guarantees that the product is safe. Piracy is also going to impact distributors and retailers. Many of them, and this is interesting, don't even know they are being supplied false and illegal products. At the time, we were surprised at the crazy stories that are fabricated by the illegal market so as to be able to sell their products. For example, they would go selling their products in the legal package, and this person would go door to door saying that he used to be an employee of Bosch, but when he decided to leave, he was given a very large stock, and this was part of the severance agreement. So I left the company, but here I have original pieces that I was allowed, that I am in a position to sell you. And people would go for that. And they were able to fool retailers and distributors and customers. But there are also those who know very well what they are buying. They are buying false products. However, they look at their competitors also selling false products and nothing happens. They are not complying with the law, but they are not being punished. So impunity is one of the major factors, I believe, that fosters such activities. We have to enforce the law more strictly. There's no point of having companies carrying out investigations. Investigations are important, but it does not in itself lead to a conclusion. As a society, as a country, we have to have more comprehensive actions that will allow us to prevent this type of crime. And people have to be able to feel that if they engage in such activities, they can pay a high price for it. Not a lawyer. I don't know if you can arrest these people, but at least that fines and penalties should be significant to the point that will mean a loss, because 3,000 reais, that it was mentioned in the previous presentation, this means nothing. They are ready to pay. So we need to work on that. And also we have to see who are those who are behind such actions. And this was a point that was raised also in the previous presentation. In some investigations that we carried out with the civil police and also with the IRS and with customs, we would see in the same box of products that was coming from abroad, we see drugs inside the box of merchandise. So those who are engaged in this, they are engaged in many criminal activities. And when you buy an illegal product, you are contributing to a much larger criminality. And this, of course, brings about a risk for local development. There's no way of denying it. Today, if we're going to launch a product, we have to think about technology, quality. We have to consider the well-being of the final user, definitely the components being able to last long, but we also have to think about the product, the packaging, and we have to do it in such a specific way so that it will not be counterfeited. So the QR code, that's something that we have in our packages. But someone may just take a picture of the QR code, access a database from Bosch, and he or she will know whether that product is original or not. But this is very expensive. The company will have to develop and invest in such system. And this decreases our margin. We are unable to pass it forward to the consumer. The consumer is ready to pay more if performance is enhanced. But just because it has the QR code, it doesn't work. We also incur in expenditures with legal action. When we go to court and start a lawsuit, there's always the question, is this worthwhile? Who is this guy who is infringing our rights? We usually do that only when it is a larger crime. In terms of the government and institutions, we have to have people who are always pressuring them to be more attentive vis-a-vis these issues. There's also, which means a cost. We have to act vis-a-vis the government. We have also to bring about awareness among consumers, which means expenses, of course. And as the legal market increases, it is stealing more and more market share from the legal market. So Bosch as a company and our competitors who pay taxes, who pay labor taxes, who provide security for their employees, they are all being hurt. Companies that engage in counterfeiting, it is amazing when you look at it and you see the very low safety level and security level for their employees. They are dealing with hazardous material without complying with the legislation. And this, of course, hurts innovation, intellectual protection, because those who hold the right have a hard time getting rid of those who infringe. So this is already my last slide, Rodrigo. I tried to speed up a bit as you asked me, but let me give you with one idea. We all know that traffic accounts for a very high number of deaths in Brazil. There are several factors that explain that, such as bad drivers, careless drivers. But if we act to control piracy and counterfeited parts, it means that we are also decreasing the number of accidents. A counterfeited part in a car may certainly contribute to the high level of accidents that we see in our roads. Therefore, we have to show to those who infringe the law, and we have to show the population that this criminal will be interested in businesses in which there is a possibility of profit and large numbers. But we have to make it clear to them that they are going to be penalized. Currently, criminal activity is easy. Criminal organizations do not have problems in placing their merchandise in the market. Therefore, we have to create barriers. We have to find ways of avoiding it. And this is something that cannot be done by a company. Brazil has more than 17,000 kilometers in dry border. I think more than 120 municipalities are in the border, and they are all ports of entry. And this crime, we know about it, and the criminals know very well where the police is. So as a society, we have to join forces to act together, because actually it is the lives of Brazilians which are in danger. I hope I was able to finish in time as I was asked. And my final message is, please join and embrace this cause. If you have any suspicion, if you have any cases that you want to report, please do it. Report the cases, and I'm ready and willing to answer any questions you may have or clarify any questions. Thank you, Leandro, for your brilliant presentation showing one more segment that suffers from piracy and all the risks that this brings about to users and to the population in general. I'd like to have at least one question asked, and I will forward it to Dr. Vismona, who in the National Forum to Fight Piracy, I'd like to ask you, what is your experience with the cigarette market? It's a market that suffers from illegal activities. What is happening there? And there's also a risk of having a tax increase in law proposals that would make life even harder for those who are acting legally. Well, certainly, this is one of the most impacted markets in terms of smuggling and smuggling from Paraguay. Cigarettes are manufactured in Paraguay, and they are manufactured specifically to be smuggled into other countries, and they dominate 57% of the market. But there are also factories which are in Brazil and do not pay taxes and are trying to, dragging their feet and going on in this activity as much as they can. So last year, for the first time, we had more tax evasion than tax collection in this area because taxes are very high in Brazil, very low in Paraguay. The smuggled product arrives in Brazil and it costs half of what the legal market is charging, and the low-income population go for that. So for the first time, we have more tax evasion than tax collection. We were able to collect about 11 billion, but we lost more than that. So this is very hurtful to the market. And that's why in this discussion of a tax reform, this should be an alert. If taxes are turned higher for some products, such as cigarette, more and more we will be giving space to the illegal market. We carried out a campaign specifically for cigarettes, but it's true for many products. If the taxes go up, the crime would benefit from it, and they are very thankful for it because they have a very favorable margin when we compare the situation. Thank you. And I would like to conclude our first panel. I would like to thank all the speakers for their brilliant presentations and also the organization of this event for another international congress, this time a virtual congress, keeping with the quality of presentations and speakers. So thank you so much and have a very fruitful day. Thank you.
Importante para nós. Entendemos que fazemos parte de um grande ecossistema e que cada um depende dos demais. O desafio é aprender juntos os novos caminhos da transformação digital. Fazer diferença com inovação, empatia e coragem. É com esse espírito que a equipe da LD Soft está aqui pronta para ajudar você a fazer cada vez mais pelo seu cliente. oferecendo meios para você trabalhar com mais produtividade e eficiência, mesmo nas condições inesperadas do trabalho totalmente remoto. Nossas ferramentas oferecem aquilo que você precisa para dar atenção a tudo que realmente importa e que só você pode fazer. Assim, ter tempo para oferecer ao seu cliente os resultados de excelência que ele sabe que vai receber de você. Por isso, vamos continuar firmes, para que em breve possamos destampar nossos sorrisos e comemorarmos as novas conquistas juntos nos desafios que estão por vir. LD Soft, potencializando o universo jurídico através da tecnologia. Do mundo, mas na verdade esperávamos Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações. Já faz algum tempo que falamos Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Já faz algum tempo que falamos Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Mas na tempo Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Mas da velocidade Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Jurídico através da tecnologia. Vamos continuar firmes, para que em breve possamos destampar nossos sorrisos e comemorarmos as novas conquistas juntos nos desafios que estão por vir. LD Soft. Desafios que estão por vir. LD Soft. Que estão por vir. LD Soft, potencializando o universo jurídico através da tecnologia. Nossas próprias necessidades, como se as mudanças fossem previsíveis ou fáceis de assimilar. Até que as mudanças Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das mudanças. Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Mas, na verdade, esperávamos que essas mudanças seguissem um ritmo imposto por nós mesmos, segundo as ações do mundo. Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Mas, na verdade, esperávamos. Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Mas, na verdade, já faz algum tempo que falamos. Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações. Já faz algum tempo que falamos da velocidade das transformações do mundo. Mas, na verdade, esperávamos que essas mudanças seguissem um ritmo imposto por nós mesmos, segundo nossas próprias necessidades. Como se as mudanças fossem previsíveis ou fáceis de assimilar. Até que o mundo parou e tivemos que ouvir as notícias e ver de frente a nossa própria vulnerabilidade. Nenhum de nós esperava experimentar uma situação como esta, mas aqui estamos, imersos nela. Mas será que conseguimos aprender alguma coisa com tudo isso? Ser capaz de aprender é a marca maior da nossa condição humana, mas tivemos que nos superar para lidar com o que chegou. E agora ficou patente o que é verdadeiramente importante para nós. Entendemos que fazemos parte de um grande ecossistema e que cada um depende dos demais. O desafio é aprender juntos os novos caminhos da transformação digital. Fazer diferença com inovação, empatia e coragem. É com esse espírito que a equipe da LD Soft está aqui pronta para ajudar você a fazer cada vez mais pelo seu cliente, oferecendo meios para você trabalhar com mais produtividade e eficiência, mesmo nas condições inesperadas do trabalho totalmente remoto. Nossas ferramentas oferecem aquilo que você precisa para dar atenção a tudo que realmente importa e que só você pode fazer. Assim, ter tempo para oferecer ao seu cliente os resultados de excelência que ele sabe que vai receber de você. Por isso, vamos continuar firmes, para que em breve possamos destampar nossos sorrisos e comemorarmos as novas conquistas.